Welcome! This is what has been happening on the Sun today, Tuesday 12th of April 2011, and there's a lot been going on. So let's go see why there's been this sudden upturn in solar activity. The main reason why we've had this increase in solar activity is the growth in the existing regions and the appearance of several new regions in the last 24 hours. The 1189-1186 complex has remained relatively stable. The new region which I mentioned yesterday is now labelled 1190 and has grown significantly overnight. There's even yet another region emerging ahead of that, which will probably be labelled 1191. There's a huge spot coming over the East Limb, which some have labelled the return of region 1176. The problem with that is that 1176 was in the southern hemisphere and this is the northern hemisphere, and it is not due back yet for another week. So I think this is a brand new region with a very, very large spot, and as you'll see from the movies, there's quite a bit of activity associated with it. In fact, I'm fairly certain that some of the C flares that we've been seeing have not been from 1190 but have been from this region. Well, I did predict C flares yesterday and we got 5 of them. As I mentioned, they've been tagged to region 1190, but I'm going to let you be the judge of whether that's correct or not later. The X-ray background has increased to the B4 level, and it looks at this time as though activity is still increasing. So let's move to the Stereo A spacecraft, which is orbiting about 90 degrees ahead of the Earth, so sees the Sun as we saw it about a week ago. So we can check on the regions that have recently rotated off the visible disk and see how they are developing. Not very much going on there, it seems. To find out what's happening on the side of the Sun facing the Earth, we turn to this Solar Dynamics Observatory. First we'll take a detailed look at the development of the regions over the last 48 hours. You can clearly see the appearance of region 1190. And now a region is appearing ahead of it. In the magnetic movie you can clearly see the emergence of new magnetic flux in each of these growing regions. As always, there's a lot going on in the Helium-2 movie, so you may have to run it through several times. I would like to remind you in particular about the V-shaped filament that I talked about a couple days ago and said it was worth keeping an eye on. Well, turns out I was right. This filament erupted today and resulted in a spectacular coronal mass ejection. And it looks as though there's another one in progress at the moment. In the coronal movie, I would like you to compare the activity in region 1190 to the east of Sun Center and the region coming over the East Limb, and decide which of the two you think is the more active. I think the one near the limb is the most active, and that's why I think most of the flares are coming from there, not the region on the disk. What do you think? To get an idea of what the Sun will look like in about a week's time, we turn to the Stereo B spacecraft, which is orbiting about 90 degrees behind the Earth. The region that is just coming over the East Limb is at this center in the Stereo B data, and as you can see, that region is very active. From the whole Sun coronal image, we can see that after these two regions on the East Limb have rotated onto the disk, there's going to be several days with no new regions, unless of course new regions emerge. Here's how the Sun looked one rotation ago. If you compare it with how it is now, you can see there's been a lot of development, but note in particular this new region with the large spot on the East Limb was not there last rotation. To see what coronal mass ejections there have been in the last 24 hours, we turn to the LASCO instrument on the ESA-NASA SOHO mission. As you can see, we've had a couple of spectacular CMEs, particularly that one in the northeast, which is associated with the filament eruption. The auroral arc looks very active, and the KP index has varied between 0 and 5, which is considered a low storm level. So in summary then, the sunspot number has increased to 80, the X-ray background has increased to B4, the radio sun has increased one whole solar flux unit to 106, the solar wind speed is up to 520 km per second, and its density is at 4 protons per cubic centimetre, which is high because it's normally below 1. The KP index has varied between quiet and a low storm level. As far as the forecast is concerned, I think we can expect a higher level of activity than we've been experiencing the last few days. I think C flares are very likely. There may even be a chance of an M flare. though none of these regions are really big enough and dynamic enough to produce an X-flare as yet. Again, we've had lots of coronal mass ejection, so I think the likelihood of those continuing is good, but until we get one aimed straight at the Earth, I don't think we're going to get a major geomagnetic storm. A little challenge for the amateur astronomers amongst you. If you can recognize the constellations in this picture, which was taken yesterday from spaceweather.com, you should be able to work out where, i.e. what latitude, and at what time this particular photograph was taken. See if you can do that. That's it for today. Keep safe. Bye for now.